The incredible truth behind a crying baby, a black maid discovers a hidden horror. Clara's heart raced as the relentless cries of the Johnsons' newborn pierced through the elegant walls of the sprawling mansion. She cradled the baby, the softness of its tiny body contrasting sharply with Clara's deep-seated anxiety. Every sorrowful wail felt like a personal call to action, a summoning that turned her blood cold. As she rocked the child, a shiver coursed through her. Something about those cries was not just a plea for comfort, but a signal, an awakening of hidden truths buried beneath the polished surface of this affluent family. Moving to soothe the child, Clara stumbled across an inconspicuous door at the end of a long corridor, its frame draped in shadows and neglect. Hesitantly, she nudged it open, revealing a dust-filled attic lined with forgotten memories. Old letters and photographs littered the floor, remnants of the past that her instinct told her shouldn't see the light of day. Clara felt a spark of dread, an eerie, potent mix of curiosity and fear gripped her as her fingers brushed against the fragile paper. Every piece she unwrapped unfurled a tale of exploitation, a history where her ancestors suffered under the weight of a legacy intertwined with the Johnsons. As memories of her mother's stories flickered in her mind, Clara's heart tightened. Her family's struggles had haunted her for generations, only now their pain felt inextricable from the very fabric of the family she had served loyally for over a decade. There was no mistaking the implications. Revealing these secrets could shatter the illusion of harmony she had helped maintain. Where did her loyalty lie now? Her walls felt as if they were closing in. Days passed, and the tension inside her morphed into a palpable pressure, simmering just below the surface. Weaving through the daily tasks, she couldn't escape thoughts of the eldest Johnson son, Thomas. Their conversations sparked something in Clara, a flicker of understanding for his struggle to break free from his family's expectations. In him, she saw a reflection of her own yearning, a desire for authenticity against the oppressive weight of history. Yet, with this bond came trepidation. Could their connection stand against the barrier erected by their disparate worlds? Before she could gather her thoughts, a heated argument erupted one evening, sending echoes of accusations and painful truths swirling through the corridors of the mansion. Clara, frozen in place, felt the tremors of the family's discord reaching her. Each word sizzled and snapped like dry twigs beneath a heavy weight. Her own family's history echoed through those walls, the words cut deep, resurfacing emotions she thought buried. Should she shield her family's honor, or remain silent, clutching to the life she had carefully cultivated? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Clara stood at the threshold, her muscles tense, heart thudding in her chest as the arguments intensified, producing a chilling reminder of the festering silence her family endured. This moment could define her, shatter the silence, reveal the ugly truth, or retreat and preserve her family's fragile existence. Each choice loomed larger than the last, each second paralyzed her with doubt. The cries of the infant rang faintly in her ears, a haunting reminder that truth could not be silenced forever. Clara stepped back from the door, her heart hammering against her ribs, drowning out the fiery words of the Johnson family. She felt torn in half, one side urging her to confront the truth, and the other clinging to the familiar comfort of denial. As the arguments swirled around her like a violent storm, she knew that every moment she hesitated was a moment stolen from her own peace. In the dim light of the attic, Clara's mind reeled with conflicting emotions. She pictured her ancestors, strong women who fought against enormous odds, yet too many remained silent, allowing the weight of secrets to crush them. The time had come for her to act. This internal wrestling match was not merely the fight for her voice, but an opportunity for transformative growth. With resolve swelling inside her, Clara felt ready to face whatever lay in the open. "Clara," a voice yelled from within the house, a sharp contrast to the muffled arguments echoing in the halls. It was Thomas, searching for her. The familiarity of his voice sent warmth through her, but just as quickly it tightened a knot of apprehension in her stomach. What would he think if he knew what she had discovered? The truth about their intertwined pasts, the burden of history bearing down upon them both. Making a decision, Clara turned, determined. She had held on to her role as a maid with unwavering loyalty, but that loyalty was no longer enough to silence the drive within her. As she descended the stairs, a rush of adrenaline pushed her forward. Each step felt heavier with the weight of her choices, yet paradoxically lighter, as if she were shedding a coat of resignation she had worn too long. "Clara!" Thomas appeared in the hallway, an anxious frown creasing his brow. His eyes scanned her face, searching for answers. The flickering candlelight accented the tension between them. "Where have you been? I've been looking for you." "I found something in the attic," Clara confessed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Something significant." "Significant how?" He leaned in slightly, eyes narrowing as he sensed the gravity of her words. The honesty behind his gaze encouraged Clara. "Your family's past is murky, Thomas. There are things buried in that attic that could change everything for us, for you, for me, for this family." She paused, gauging his reaction. "It's about the legacy we're a part of, and I don't think we can ignore it much longer." A flicker of understanding crossed Thomas's face, the kind she had never seen before. The realization of a shared burden. Just as Clara had wrestled with the pain of her history, Thomas was grappling with the reckoning of his own family. For a moment, time stood still as the enormity of their predicament enveloped them. "Maybe we need to confront it together," he replied, his voice resolute. The determination in his words mirrored what Clara had felt all along, igniting a shared purpose. It brought clarity to her tumultuous emotions, and for the first time in years, Clara felt a flicker of hope. Yet, as they stood together in the dimly lit hall, a sudden crash reverberated through the mansion, puncturing the moment. Clara leaped at the sound, her instincts heightened. The baby's cries echoed faintly in the distance, distorted by the sudden chaos now surrounding her. They exchanged anxious glances. The tension had escalated from their private introspection to an urgent call. Before Clara could collect her thoughts, the reality that awaited them began to sharpen. "What was that?" she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. "I don't know," Thomas replied, brimming with both fear and determination. "Let's find out." Clara nodded, her earlier resolve igniting anew. The path forward was becoming clearer, yet trepidation loomed large. They were on the brink of unearthing truths that could irrevocably change their lives. With their hearts racing, they stepped deeper into the unknown, ready to confront whatever awaited them in the aftermath of the chaos. Unbeknownst to them, a single decision would soon rock the very foundations of their world. Would they emerge stronger, or would everything they've ever known unravel before their eyes? The din of chaos cascaded around Clara as she and Thomas raced toward the source of the sound. Each hurried step propelled them deeper into uncertainty, but Clara's heart thrummed with the urgency of commitment. She had sensed the undercurrents of her life shifting. Now she was fully aware that the choices ahead were pivotal. This was no longer about uncovering family secrets. It was about reclaiming her own narrative. As they navigated through dimly lit corridors, Clara's mind leapt between raw fear and the intoxicating beckon of courage. She had spent too long in the shadows, and each moment spent hesitating was suffocating. The crashing noises had stirred up something buried within her, and this was her opportunity to break free. Steeling herself, she pushed open the door to the nursery. Inside, the room was disheveled, overturned furniture, a fallen bookshelf spilling children's books, and in the center, the cradle rocked perilously.
The baby's wails resonated through the air, entwining with Clara's rising anxiety. She stepped forward, her instincts kicking in while Thomas hesitated at the threshold. "Clara!" His voice was a mix of concern and urgency. "There's no time," she snapped, the tension coiling tighter as she reached for the cradle, ensuring the infant was unharmed amidst the chaos. But as she lifted the baby, something caught her eye, a piece of paper wedged beneath the cradle. Clara's breath caught. It was a letter, handwritten and crumpled. With trembling hands, she took a quick glance at the baby, an innocent face framed by tousled hair. The wails subsided slightly, inviting Clara to pause. She opened the letter, her heart racing as she read the words scrawled frantically across the page. It spoke of a family betrayal, a hidden child, and a fortune lost to deceit. "Clara?" Thomas's voice again tugged at her attention, but this newfound revelation held her captive. She quickly folded the letter. "I found something. It's—" She hesitated, the weight of the implications heavy. "It's about the baby, a secret connected to the Johnsons. We need to look closer into this. This could change everything." "Do you think it's safe?" Thomas's eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "No," she replied decisively. "But safety now is less important than understanding what we're involved in. We've been walking a tightrope between their world and ours, and I refuse to step back any more." Thomas met her gaze, and in that moment they both understood. The stakes had risen. Their limits would be tested. Pushing past her trepidation, Clara felt clarity washing over her, igniting her resolve. How much longer could they afford ignorance? They had the chance not only to reshape their own destinies, but perhaps to deliver justice for those who had suffered in silence before them. As Clara gathered the baby and the letter, she felt the weight of her ancestors behind her, women who had once been denied their voices. Their stories begged to be uncovered, to be told, no matter the consequences. The two of them barely left the nursery before Clara's pulse quickened again as she recalled herself grappling with a strange mix of exhilaration and fear. In that moment, as they moved away from the nursery's tumult, a shadow fell across her path. It was her former employer, Eleanor Johnson, a figure draped in disappointment and anger, her eyes darkened by unspoken truths. "Clara!" Eleanor's voice burst forth. "There you are. I need to speak with you." Every instinct screamed at Clara to flee, to hide the baby, but that same drive for truth pushed her to confront Eleanor. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice shaking with adrenaline but resolute. "This isn't over," Eleanor said, her tone lowering to a chilling whisper that sent shivers down Clara's spine. Clara felt her heart race anew, caught between the familiar and the unknown. They were on the brink of exposing something far-reaching, layers of deceit unraveling beneath her. And in that moment, Clara realized that the journey she had begun would only intensify. There were answers waiting, lurking in the shadows, desperate to be drawn into the light. Deciding now meant embracing the unknown fully. She steadied her breath, the weight of the baby heavier than ever. Not just a child, but a key to unveiling everything they were meant to confront. As she faced Eleanor, Clara braced for the confrontation that could shatter everything she had ever known. But the question that hung in the air was clear. Could she confront the darkness lurking within her own heart while she sought the truth about everyone else's? Clara's eyes locked onto Eleanor's, a fierce tension swelling between them. The room felt impossibly small, and each breath hung thick with unspoken accusations. Clara's heart thundered in her chest, the urgency of the moment pulsating like a second heartbeat. The baby in her arms had become a symbol, not just of innocence, but of the leverage she needed in this confrontation. Eleanor's mere presence was a reminder of all that had bound Clara in the past. Her employer's power hung heavily in the air. Clara glanced down at the letter tucked away in her pocket, its revelations igniting a fire within her. This was a turning point. She could either retreat back into a life of silence or confront the darkness before her head-on.
"Clara, I need to know what you found," Eleanor pressed, lowering her voice but sharpening her gaze. "We're not the enemies here. You know that." Were they, though? Could she really ever believe that after all the veiled threats and manipulations? Clara stood straighter, reigniting the spark of rebellion she had felt in the nursery. This was no longer about Eleanor's expectations. It was about her own journey, her right to reclaim what had been denied for too long. "I know about the baby," she said, her voice steady even as she fought against the tremors of doubt. "And I'm not going to let you bury the truth any longer." Eleanor's expression flickered from concern to surprise, and Clara noticed the flicker of fear in her eyes. For once, the tables felt turned, and the feeling was exhilarating. But it also carried the weight of dread. "Listen to me," Eleanor said, almost pleading now. "You don't understand what you're up against. This isn't just about family secrets. It's deeper. The implications are devastating for all of us," Clara interrupted, emboldened. "You may see this as preserving your legacy, but it's built on lies. And what legacy is that if it's founded on deceit?" Eleanor recoiled slightly, as if struck. The air thickened with tension. The challenge Clara had now laid down felt monumental. Their roles were shifting, and for the first time, Clara could see Eleanor's confusion crystallize into anger. "You think you know what's at stake? I've sacrificed everything for this family, and it's not just me. There are others who will be affected. You are playing with fire, Clara." Maybe it's time someone did. Clara's resolve surged. The fire of her ancestors heated her blood, guiding her towards something greater than herself. With a determined stride, she walked past Eleanor, cradling the baby securely against her chest. It was a clear sign that she was no longer afraid. She was declaring war not just on the lies, but on her own fears and hesitations. "Clara," Thomas whispered, following closely behind her, "are you sure about this?" "I'll never get another chance to confront this darkness," she replied quietly, her mind racing. Every moment in her life, every decision that felt like a defeat was guiding her now. It was about seizing agency, about reshaping the narrative not just for herself, but for the generations that had come before her. As they hurried through the corridors, Clara's mind churned with possibilities. The secrets cloaking her family and this house were vast, and she recognized that unraveling them wouldn't just be a challenge, it could be perilous. But every instinct urged her to press on. The truth was woven into the fabric of her identity, and she was finally ready to wear it. Shoving through the door leading out into the wild world beyond the walls of secrets felt liberating. She and Thomas emerged into the chill of the evening air, fresh and bracing. But as Clara turned to face him, a realization struck her. The letter had hinted at something larger, a force far more potent. What if there were others ready to stand with her? "Thomas, we can't do this alone. We need allies," she declared, feeling the weight of conviction settle over her like armor. "Who do you have in mind?" he asked, eyes widening as he began to understand the breadth of her intent. "The other employees, anyone who's felt the oppressive weight of this family's secrets. We need to bring them in. Together, we can create a force they won't anticipate," Clara said, every word igniting a plan in her mind. But what would the reaction be when she unveiled her intentions? Turning to ally with the very people she once feared was an electrifying thought, filled with risks and rewards. And even as hope flickered alongside the fears of confrontation, one pressing thought thrummed beneath it all. Were they prepared for the consequences? As she took a deep breath and looked back toward the house, she felt the weight of her choices settle into her bones. The time had come to gather allies. Those living in the shadows needed to come into the light. Would they join a cause led by a woman whose confidence could still falter under the weight of what lay ahead? The stakes were rising with every moment that passed, tightened like a noose around their shared fates. And as they set forth with new resolve, Clara could almost hear the echoes of the hidden truths calling to be unearthed, waiting to propel her into a confrontation that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her past and her future. Cool evening air danced around Clara, invigorating but carrying the weight of uncertainty. As she and Thomas stepped away from the shadow of the house, the world ahead stretched vast and unfamiliar. For the first time, the enormity of her plan settled heavily in her mind. Gathering allies wasn't just a strategy, it was a formidable leap into the unknown. Clara had always stayed within defined boundaries, the walls of her previous life safeguarding her from both rejection and failure. Now she would need to step beyond those walls, into a territory where loyalty, trust, and courage would dictate her fate. "Do you think they'll trust us?" Thomas asked, breaking her reverie. His voice had a tremor. He understood the stakes too well. Clara's jaw tightened, an instinctive reaction to the fear in his tone. "They have nothing to lose anymore," she replied, her determination sharpening her words. "They've lived under the same deceptions. If we can show them they're not alone, they'll see the truth." In her heart, however, doubt snaked around her resolve. Trust was a fragile thing, especially built on the ruins of past loyalties. Clara recalled the hushed whispers in the hallways, the sideways glances exchanged between coworkers during the more tense moments of family drama that unfolded in front of them. Would those who had been complicit in silence now rally beside her? She gestured toward the small staff quarters that huddled at the back of the property, their exterior drab and neglected. "They're in there," she said, looking up at Thomas. "We start with them." Stepping carefully, they approached the door. Clara felt a fleeting moment of hesitation. Could she face the very people she once viewed with a mix of admiration and fear? But before she second-guessed herself, she knocked firmly, the sound echoing in the stillness. The door creaked open, revealing a tight-knit group of staff, each face marked with the weariness of unspoken burdens. Clara's heart raced as she recognized familiar expressions: the cook's weary smile, the groundskeeper's guarded eyes, and the housekeeper who had become an unexpected friend. "Clara!" the housekeeper exclaimed, surprise flashing across her face. "What are you doing here?" Clara took a deep breath, steadied by the thought that she was here to stand for something. "I need to talk to all of you. We're in danger. The secrets, our secrets, are suffocating us, and it's time we stood together." Murmurs rippled through the group. Faces turned, questioning and wary. Clara could see the flicker of concern mirrored in each of their eyes. She stepped forward, driven by the instinct to ignite a spark of solidarity. "You've all felt it, haven't you? The way this family's lies bleed into our lives. It's time we stop hiding. We can fight back." "But how?" a voice called from the back, cutting through her fervent words. Clara met the eyes of a young maid, whose look of skepticism reflected deep-rooted fears. "What if they retaliate? What are we risking?" The gravity of this
question hung in the air. Clara felt it burrow into her chest. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for her, but for them all. The choices they made now would redefine not only their immediate futures, but the legacy they'd leave behind. "I can't promise you safety," Clara began, her voice low and earnest. "But I can promise you we deserve our truth. We deserve to live with dignity, not hidden in their shadows. If we join forces, the power they wield will crumble. Together, we can take back what's ours." The silence enveloped them, a palpable tension pregnant with possibility. Clara could see hesitation, softened by the warmth of hope, beginning to creep into the room. If she could just get someone to take that first step with her, maybe they could all find the strength needed to challenge a lifetime of oppressive silence. As discussion sparked slowly among the group, Clara felt the urgency of her heart start to ebb. They were beginning to rally, to recognize the truth she had uncovered, the implication of her voice becoming a tide that could not be easily ignored.
But just as she felt the ground beneath them start to shift, a loud crash resonated from the house, shattering the tentative unity her speech had forged. A new terror gripped her. What if Eleanor or someone else had overheard? Her breath quickened. They were no longer just gathering allies. They had stirred the danger they sought to confront. Clarifying her resolve in an instant, she stepped forward, her heart racing. We can't back down now. We either face this together or we watch our chance slip away. As murmurs turned heated, Clara sensed their moment of truth was fast approaching. Would they unify against the dangers lurking in their silence, or would fear pull them back into the shadows once more? The answer teetered on the edge, a shard of uncertainty glinting at the heart of her rebellion. And as Clara braced herself for the confrontation that would inevitably follow, she knew one thing: this was only the beginning. The tension clung to Clara as she stood at the forefront of the gathering, her heart pounding with the weight of uncertainty and newfound purpose. The noise from the house echoed in the background like a distant storm on the horizon, a reminder of the very dangers looming over them. Each murmured conversation felt like a string being pulled, ready to either snap or weave their solidarity tighter. Just as Clara prepared to present her next words, a fierce gust of wind rattled the window panes, an ominous foreshadowing that mirrored her thoughts. She glimpsed Thomas, who remained close by, his eyes searching her for strength she feared she might not have. This was her moment. She could either lead them into a brighter future or back into the shadows of apathy. "Listen," she exclaimed, raising her voice to capture every wary face in the dim light. "What's happening in that house?"
Is not just about fear anymore. It's about our lives, the lives they don't care to see. We can pull the curtain back on their secrets, but it requires courage, true courage. Clara watched as some eyes brightened. There was a glint of recognition among a few, perhaps a realization that they didn't have to navigate this treacherous path alone. But doubt still loomed large, like a specter haunting them from above. "Tell us how you know," the same young maid challenged, her defiance stirring the air. Clara noted the cracks in her composure. The girl needed assurance, not just from her words, but from her very essence. "I know because I've lived it," Clara replied, her voice shaking with the truth she had to offer. "I've seen their brutal games up close. I've felt the sting of their betrayal. I'm not just asking you to believe. I'm showing you that our realities intersect, that they can't pull us apart unless we let them. Our stories are intertwined in ways they can't begin to imagine." The group fell silent. Clara felt the weight of their collective gaze pull her deeper into the flood of memories she had fought hard to suppress. She thought of all the moments that had led her here, the quiet tears, the clenching of fists against walls of injustice, and the promises made to herself that she wouldn't stand idle any longer. Each lie they tell is a blade aimed at us. If we're divided, we bleed out in silence. But if we come together, we become a wall they can't breach. They can keep secrets, but we can be the truth that masks their deception. Hope flickered, but it was fragile, like a match in the wind. Clara sensed it hanging by a thread, her heart racing with the knowledge that each passing second could tip the balance. She felt sweat bead on her forehead and wiped it away hastily. Her body was overcome with the urgency to act, yet her mind wrestled with fears that threatened to paralyze her. Just then, the door swung open wider, and Clara's breath hitched. Eleanor's silhouette appeared, framed by the glow of the house behind her, and panic surged through the room. The fear Clara had anticipated coursed through the crowd. Eleanor might have heard their whispers. A confrontation loomed, and she held the key to whether they would step forward or back away. "Clara, what are you doing here?" Eleanor demanded, her sharp tone slicing through the air. The atmosphere thickened, the warmth of hope vacating the space, replaced with icy uncertainty. Clara knew they were at a critical juncture,
one where the very foundations of their resolve might either solidify or shatter. She mustered her courage and met Eleanor's steely gaze, determination igniting in her veins. This was no longer about merely gathering allies. It was about daring to change the narrative. "I'm here to fight," Clara asserted, finding her voice as she took a small step forward. "And I'm asking everyone here to join me. We have nothing left to lose." The weight of her words lingered, echoing their potency as the silence enveloped them once more. Clara felt the need for a decision hang heavily in the air, inching toward a pivotal breakthrough or ultimate defeat. It was clear now they had to confront the disruption and the truth that came with it, or risk losing everything they had yet to gain. As she stood on the precipice of action, Clara realized that this confrontation was not an external battle, but one that would clarify her future. Would she harness the turbulence of this moment to solidify her place among her peers, or would she falter when faced with confrontation? The choice lay ahead, a path that beckoned for courage, but it would demand more than mere words. It would require a relentless spirit to unveil their reality and realize their potential. Clara took a deep breath, heart racing. This was their moment. Would they step into the light of change together or remain shackled in the darkness of their silence? Clara's heart thrummed in her chest, reverberating off the walls of her newfound reality. Each pair of eyes on her seemed to suspend time, amplifying the heavy air of uncertainty. Yet as she stood there, the tight knot of trepidation within her began to unravel, giving way to a fierce clarity. She could not falter now, not when there was so much at stake. Eleanor's steady, penetrating gaze bore into Clara, a challenge that seemed to echo through the chaos of the gathering. For a fleeting moment, Clara hesitated, questioning the confidence she had conjured. Did she really possess the strength to ignite a fire in the hearts of those who stood with her? Or was she merely fooling herself, driven by desperation rather than true resolve? "What do you mean, fight?" Eleanor pressed, feigning incredulity, but Clara saw the glimmer of fear in her eyes. It was a crack in her armor. "I mean that we need to stand up for each other," Clara reiterated, her conviction solidifying with every passing second. "We're not just victims, we're warriors. If we don't speak out, who will? They count on our silence, they thrive in the shadows." A ripple of murmurs coursed through the crowd, emboldening Clara further. She was no longer the girl who felt small and powerless in Eleanor's gaze. She was growing into a woman who understood the gravity of her voice. She had a responsibility, not just to herself, but to everyone in the room. "Look around," she urged, gesturing to the assembled faces, filled with uncertainty and courage alike. "What we have is fragile, but if we let fear dictate our choices, then we lose. We must stand firm against the lies that bind us. We are stronger than we know, but we need to awaken that strength. Now." Her words seemed to resonate, and she observed hesitant nods, as if the idea of unity was stirring something dormant within her peers. Each nod bolstered her spirit, transforming her self-doubt into a flicker of empowerment. Then, in a heartbeat, Eleanor's expression darkened. She took a step forward, her voice low and venomous. "You think you can just rally people against me? You don't know what you're stepping into. You don't know the consequences of your actions." Clara felt a surge of defiance rush through her veins. Consequences? She had lived a life fraught with them, and the time for letting them control her was over. "Perhaps it's time I learned," Clara replied, her voice steady and unwavering. "If you want to threaten us with fear, it means you're afraid of something worse, the truth." In that moment, Clara realized she wasn't just fighting Eleanor or the looming specter of their oppressors. She was grappling with her own self-worth and the belief that her voice could disrupt the status quo. The act of standing up for those who felt voiceless meant more than just advocacy. It was proof that she existed, that she mattered.
The whispers gained momentum, and she caught Thomas's reassuring gaze. His confidence spurred her forward. She could feel the collective heartbeat of the room amplifying her resolve, a shared realization pulsing through them. But just as she began to sense a shift, the door creaked wider, and another figure emerged from the shadows. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the imposing shape. It was Victor, Eleanor's staunch ally. The dynamics of the gathering shifted instantly, and like a thunderclap, the atmosphere turned electric with anticipation and fear. "Clara," Victor's voice slithered through the space, dripping with disdain. "You think you've ignited some sort of rebellion? This is folly. You have no idea what you're challenging." Clara's throat tightened, but beneath the threat, adrenaline surged within her. The confrontation was inevitable, a test of everything she had prepared for in this moment. Would she crumble under Victor's influence, or would she rise and meet the storm head-on? As chaos stirred around her, Clara felt the weight of impending action settle over her shoulders. She took a breath, the urgency within her igniting a fierce determination. They were on the brink of something monumental. A revelation awaited, but first she would have to confront the dangers entwined with truth. Facing Victor, Clara realized that the battle ahead would not only set her course, but shape her very being. This was her moment to choose courage over fear. Would she confront her adversary, or would she retreat into uncertainty once more? "Let's find out, shall we?" she whispered to herself, steeling her resolve as she prepared for the challenge looming just beyond the shadows. Clara stood her ground, her heart racing as she met Victor's calculating gaze. The whispers around her faded into a low hum, each voice blending with the thudding pulse of her own thoughts. This was the moment she had anticipated, yet nothing could truly prepare her for the confrontation. Would she crumble under Victor's influence, or would she rise and meet the storm head-on? As chaos stirred around her, Clara felt the weight of impending action settle over her shoulders. She took a breath, the urgency within her igniting a fierce determination. They were on the brink of something monumental. A revelation awaited, but first she would have to confront the dangers entwined with truth. Facing Victor, Clara realized that the battle ahead would not only set her course, but shape her very being. This was her moment to choose courage over fear. Would she confront her adversary, or would she retreat into uncertainty once more? "Let's find out, shall we?" she whispered to herself, steeling her resolve as she prepared for the challenge looming just beyond the shadows. Clara stood her ground, her heart racing as she met Victor's calculating gaze. The whispers around her faded into a low hum, each voice blending with the thudding pulse of her own thoughts. This was the moment she had anticipated, yet nothing could truly prepare her for the confrontation. Victor advanced, his presence oppressive, an embodiment of the very fears she sought to dismantle. "You've stirred a hornet's nest, Clara. Do you underestimate the stakes? Your naivety will cost you dearly." Her instincts urged her to retreat, to protect herself from the impending storm. But as she inhaled, a new sense of clarity filled her. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every person who felt buried beneath the weight of their silence. "You underestimate me, Victor," Clara asserted, her voice stronger than she felt. "I know exactly what I'm challenging. The question is, what are you afraid of losing?" The silence that followed was palpable. She could sense the shifting energy in the room. Maybe it was time to peel back the layers of fear that suffocated them. Clara realized that she was no longer just a participant in this struggle. She had become a catalyst. The realization sparked an inner strength, something she hadn't fully embraced until now. Her mind wrestled with her thoughts, calculating the risks, the possible repercussions of her boldness. Victor's disdainful sneer only intensified her resolve. If she could push past the fear that churned in her stomach, perhaps she could unlock something vital in herself and those around her. She was beginning to understand that growth often emerged from the most uncomfortable confrontations. Eleanor watched from a distance, her expression a mix of admiration and apprehension. Clara's willingness to face Victor activated a dormant connection within the group. They leaned in, revealing their shared vulnerabilities, their unvoiced fears. Victor's eyes narrowed, the tension thickened. "You think your little speech means anything? You're playing with fire. The darkness you seek to expose has claws, Clara. They will come for you in ways you can't foresee." Clara's mind raced. Questions flooded her thoughts, seeking answers that evaded her grasp. What was it about the darkness that lingered in their lives? Would it strike only those who dared to speak? Or would it lash out at anyone who refused to comply with its oppressive silence? But this wasn't a time for escape. She had chosen this path, and the adventure of uncovering truth beckoned. "I've felt the darkness, Victor, and I've seen what it does to people when they remain silent. I've experienced it myself, but I refuse to cower. The truth might be scary, but it's necessary," she shot back, pushing past her trembling doubts. The crowd around her erupted in murmurs, the energy shifting. Their shared trepidation started to morph into something else, a unity forged through the recognition of their collective struggle. Victor recoiled as Clara continued, feeling emboldened. "I'm ready to face whatever lies ahead, but I can't do it alone. It's time we stop allowing fear to dictate our lives. We must speak out. We must confront. If you're afraid of the pain that truth can unveil, then you need to ask yourself why." An electric spark ignited the air, shifting the entire atmosphere around them. Clara realized that she was no longer a puppet reacting to the strings pulled by Victor's threats. She was an individual claiming her own narrative. The walls that had confined her crumbled slightly, revealing a pathway leading to her own growth and understanding. Victor's eyes narrowed, a flicker of uncertainty flashing across his face. For the first time, Clara sensed a chink in his armor, and the knowledge filled her with courage. There was no going back now. However, as she took a step forward, the reality of what this confrontation could mean flooded in. Consequences she could not predict, betrayals lurking in the shadows. Could her newfound strength withstand the fallout? Just as she prepared to solidify her declaration, a loud crash echoed from beyond the room, disrupting the charged tension. Clara's heart raced at the deafening sound. What new threat awaited them, and how would it play into her fight for truth? The moment lingered, a flash of realization dawning upon her. The battle was not solely against Victor or Eleanor. It was against the chaos that hovered just outside their grasp, ready to test her new resolve. Clara froze in place, the echo of the crash reverberating in her ears. Instincts screamed for her to retreat, to shield herself from whatever threat lurked in the unknown. But the fire ignited within her did not allow for retreat. She was standing at the precipice of a choice that would shape her future. Fingers clenched at her sides, she focused on the group surrounding her. Their faces exhibited curiosity mingled with anxiety, as though they too were aware that this moment could change everything. Her thoughts raced. Was there a way to transform this chaos into clarity, using it as an opportunity to deepen the collective courage building around her? "Stay alert," she commanded, her voice breaking through the murmurings of the crowd. "We face more than just Victor's threats. The real danger comes from our own silence and the distractions that seek to derail us." Victor remained motionless, his expression shifting from disdain to uncertainty. Clara drew strength from that flicker of doubt and took a deliberate step towards him.
Every heartbeat felt like a drum echoing a call to arms, a reminder that she was on a mission larger than herself. With her vision refocusing, she caught Eleanor's gaze. The apprehension in her eyes was a reflection of Clara's own fears, but beneath that, Clara sensed a glimmer of hope. It was all-consuming, the possibility that they could stand together, unafraid to confront the darkness. But then, the childlike wailing from the other side of the room pierced through the tension, growing louder and more desperate. The sound tugged at Clara's heart, pulling at her motivations. Was it a distraction or a genuine plea for help? The chaos outside was inching closer, manifesting as a reminder of their shared struggles, the childhood echoes of the fears they had buried beneath years of silence. She turned back to the group, desperation and determination.
This is our moment. We have the power to break the cycle of fear, to speak for those who cannot. We cannot let our fear dictate the direction of our lives any longer. Victor stepped forward, attempting to reassert his authority with a dismissive wave. Think wisely about your next words, Clara. The darkness doesn't just listen, it acts. What would it profit you to feed it? Clara's heart raced, but she no longer felt paralyzed by fear. Instead, it fueled her resolve. If it's a fight they want, it's a fight they'll get. I won't back down, and I'll be damned if I let your intimidation control me or anyone else here. The tension twisted in the air, electric and raw. Each individual in the room began to input their own small affirmations, voices rising alongside Clara's confidence. They were awakening to their own authority, one that had lain dormant for too long, and the synergy was palpable. Yet a small voice of apprehension coursed through Clara's mind. Was it too late to backtrack? Had her words ignited a fire that threatened to consume rather than liberate? Suddenly, from the gathering shadows near the entrance, a figure emerged, cloaked in ambiguity, an uninvited presence that brought an icy chill of dread. As the figure stepped closer, Clara's breath hitched. She could sense that this newcomer bore secrets darker than she had anticipated. The tipping point had arrived, and she was not prepared for what revelations awaited. She had sparked courage, but would they now be tested against an unknown force? Her hands tightened into fists, the urgency driving her forward. The moment had come to confront not just Victor, but whatever shadow this figure brought with it. Would her newfound strength withstand the onslaught of truth about to unfold? As the figure loomed closer, a central question haunted her. Did she truly understand the darkness she'd unleashed? Clara's resolve solidified as the enigmatic figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a gaunt face etched with the weight of burdened years. The shadow that accompanied them was suffocating, a chilling reminder of the secrets she sought to unearth. As the room fell into a whispering tide of uncertainty, Clara felt the adrenaline coursing through her, amplifying her presence. She would not lose this moment to fear. "Who are you?" came a voice from the crowd, a tremor betraying familiar anxieties. The figure paused, taking a slow, deliberate breath before addressing them. "I am the keeper of stories buried beneath layers of silence, stories that tie us all to the past." Their voice resonated with an authority that demanded attention. Clara could feel the warmth of solidarity begin to build, instinctively drawing the group closer together. She had envisioned gathering allies to confront the Johnsons, yet here before her stood an unexpected ally, a bridge connecting the parts of her journey that lay fragmented and unclear. "What do you mean?" Clara demanded, stepping forward with purpose. "What stories do you carry?"
"I know what has been done. The legacy you fear connects us all. This baby, this family, the pain buried in oppression, they are all entangled," the figure announced, their eyes flaring with a mix of urgency and sorrow. Clara's heart sank as understanding coursed through her. "You know the secrets of this family. You know why the past has haunted us." The figure nodded solemnly, the air thickening with heavy recognition. Each secret has consequences, and when one lies hidden, it intertwines with others, creating a web that ensnares the innocent. As these revelations hung in the air between them, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility settle in. This was her moment of accountability, not just for herself, but for those who had been too afraid to confront their reality. "I refuse to let them continue living under a veil of deceit," Clara proclaimed, her voice lifting with fervor. "If this family's history is tangled with ours, then it's time we unite to uncover the truth. We can no longer be pawns in their game." Around her, a few members of the group nodded, their expressions shifting from skepticism to gradual acceptance, fueled by Clara's courage. She had ignited a fire, a palpable drive toward liberation that resonated in the eyes of every individual present. The figure at the forefront leaned closer, their eyes now ablaze with intensity. "Your journey will not be without peril, but it's a necessary path for true healing. Are you ready to face what lies ahead?" Clara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of generations both lifted and heavy upon her shoulders. "Yes, we're ready." In that moment, she felt a transformation deep within, a merging of her fears and newfound strength. No longer just a maid overshadowed by the legacy of the Johnsons, she stood as a beacon of clarity, summoning her fellow employees to forge ahead together. Thomas, standing close by, locked eyes with her, a subtle smile of admiration illuminating his serious demeanor. He stepped forward, joining her side. "Whatever it takes, we will do this together." As Clara surveyed the faces around her, she recognized that she was not isolated within her struggles. They were collectively stepping into the light. The tide had turned. "Let us gather the stories, document the truths hidden within this house and our lives," she urged passionately, urgency threading her words. "What we expose together will not destroy us, it will liberate us." As the murmurs of agreement swelled around them, Clara felt emboldened, ready to transcend the fear that had held her and others captive for far too long. They were no longer fragile souls hiding within the confines of their pasts. They were a united front, prepared to dismantle the oppressive architectures of silence. Suddenly, a loud crash rang through the old walls of the Johnson mansion. This time, it wasn't just a reminder of the secrets that lurked. It was a call to action. Clara turned to face the door. Leading back toward the source of the sound, adrenaline surging once again. "Stay strong. This is our moment," she rallied, feeling more alive than ever as she raced ahead. Each step resonated with their commitment to uncover the truth together. Their resolve became a weapon, a force that could shatter the lies woven around them. As they burst forth into the chaos, Clara felt a deep sense of satisfaction settling in her chest. She had transformed her fear into action, her doubts into unyielding conviction. The fight was not just about uncovering hidden truths, but about reclaiming her narrative and the narratives of those around her. As the confrontation loomed on the horizon, she recognized the invaluable growth within herself. A metamorphosis where she stood not as a servant cloaked in the shadows, but as a proud ambassador of truth. Standing at the edge of the unfolding chaos, Clara whispered a silent promise to herself. She would see this through, for herself, for the generations of women who had been silenced, and for every baby crying out for the justice of their story. With an invigorating sense of purpose hanging in the air, Clara took one last glance back at her allies, a collective power igniting between them.
ready to face whatever darkness awaited in the pursuit of their truths. Now was the time to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. You need to subscribe now.